Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for May 7th. I'm your host, Aaron Armstrong, and today, I'm not going to be updating you on what happened yesterday. I'm not even going to be updating you on what happened with Dane's game on Big Brother Canada 7, because I'm here to update you on what happened with Anthony's game across the whole season of Big Brother Canada 7. We're going to have some fun. Anthony's game on Big Brother Canada 7. From day one, when he walked in with a burgundy suit, looking fly, to, day 69 when he walks out with, I guess, some other colored suit, also looking fly. It'll be good. So here we go. Let's do this. I am here. I'm going to go through Anthony's game from start to finish, or at least as close to finish as we can get leading into the finale. You can join me in the chat here on YouTube and ask some questions along the way. If possible, if you could keep your questions to the current time period that we are currently talking about, that'd be great. And then questions for the end game we can save for when we talk about the end. So let's do this. Let's talk about Anthony. Preseason, Anthony was not exactly high on anyone's draft board. Most people's draft board, at the very least. He was, I believe, last on mine. No, I think I had Mackie last. He was very low on my draft board. Not a lot of people had much faith in Anthony, and one of the reasons for that is that he had a very strange interview with Ika. Where Ika seemed uncomfortable, and she was like, what are we on this? Are we on like The Bachelor or something? Like, what's happening here? Why are you hitting on me like this? And, Anthony was being weird. It was weird. And you know what? In many ways, our predictions about Anthony were true. It's just that while most people who have Anthony's personality fail dramatically, Anthony saw great success. And there are still some times when I watch him on the feeds where he is acting in the way that made Ika feel uncomfortable. And I feel like, why aren't these people feeling uncomfortable? Why are they listening to what he's saying? But they do. They listen to him. There's, I think there's a fine line between Anthony's personality being so alpha, so domineering, and the kind of player that just falls so flat, so fast in many seasons. And Anthony walks that line on the right side of it, the correct side of it, the one that is successful. And I think that 99 times out of 100, when you see somebody like Anthony preseason, he's probably going to fail. But Anthony did not. And he had a lot of success across the season. So let's start here in week 1, day 1. Anthony walks into the house, burgundy suit, looking fly. He does not do any fist bumps, but he is brought into the Pretty Boys as soon as he walks into the house. And this is probably, despite everything that happens with Anthony across the season, the biggest moment of Anthony's game, because I truly think that this was incredibly important and probably necessary for Anthony's game, that he was brought into the Pretty Boys. He knew very little about the show coming in, and as I said, that fine line with Anthony's personality, I think that he would have found success in the game without the Pretty Boys, but I do not think he would have had nearly the amount of success as he did without the Pretty Boys. They not only helped teach him the strategy of the game, but they also helped protect him in some of these early rounds when he might have been a lot more vulnerable otherwise. So this was a big lucky break for him, but he utilized it to its maximum potential. And so that's Anthony was able to learn the game on easy mode in some regards because of this formula that the Brigade perfected back in season 12. Day 2, he bonded with Dane. They talked about their lives. Dane felt like they had a really good connection. Anthony did as well. They made a final 2 within the Pretty Boys, that it's always going to be those two against the world. Adam is going to win that first HOH. He is going to nominate Damian and Laura. Anthony wanted Damian to go. Anthony versus Damian is kind of a season-long feud, and it's one-sided. It's almost like Steve and Becky. Damian just never rubbed Anthony the right way, and Anthony is always going to make sure that he vetoes any Damian involvement in any alliances, and isolates Damian from any potential allies. I mean, we talked a lot about how Damian has done nothing in the game. People talk about that all the time. Looking back at Anthony's game, Anthony had a lot to do with that. Anytime anybody wanted to work with Damian, Anthony cut it off at the knees before it could happen. So, something to think about. So Anthony wanted Damian to leave. I do feel like he held a grudge in this first week. The fact that he did not get his way. He wanted Damian to go over Laura. He wanted Laura to stay. He liked Laura. But Sam had too much pull with Adam and with the house at large, and so he had to give in, and Laura is going to be the one to go, and he had to let that happen. And like I said, I think for the rest of the season, he is going to hold a little bit of a grudge for Sam for making that happen, and against Damian for being the recipient of that move. Unfortunately, we didn't see it on the feed, so I can't tell you that much about it, but I do feel like this is one of the primary motivators for Anthony throughout the game. Now, Anthony is part of this tentative group of 9 between all 4 Pretty Boys, Sam, Chelsea, Kaylin, Kiki, and Esty, but of course, it doesn't really go anywhere, this group of 9. Anthony also bonds with Kaylin in this first week and has mostly positive relationships with most of the house. People feel generally good about him at this point in time. So that's interesting. Stacked wants to know, do you think Anthony would have tried to showmance Laura? I believe Anthony did mention something like, Laura maybe being a little bit of his type, but he also kind of has something going on. So I don't know if he would have tried to showmance her, but I do think he kind of liked her. And that's one of the reasons why he was not happy to see her go. So Laura does go. Laura is evicted, and Anthony is a vote to evict her. It's a unanimous vote. So that's where that happened. Week 2, Dane is going to win the HOH. He wants to put up Kira and Mackie. This is also when Corey enters the house. Anthony plots with Dane to get rid of Sam if they have the opportunity this week. Anthony already wants to get rid of Sam. This is already something that needs to happen. She had too much influence last week. She has too much power in the house. Sam is a target for Anthony, and he is plotting with Dane. It is Anthony and Dane at this point who are running the show. Kaylin approaches Anthony with a theory at some point during the week. A theory because Kaylin had tried to pitch to Dane that Mark should go on the block instead of Mackie here in week 2. And Dane was like, nah, don't want to do that. And so Kaylin thinks that Dane must secretly be working with Mark and Adam because he's also trying to protect Adam in the Adam versus Sam debate. And so she tells Anthony this, and Anthony's like, interesting. Interesting theory, Kaylin. Let me think about it. He then, of course, lets Adam and Dane know about Kaylin's theory, and this really starts Adam's quest to discredit and target Kaylin, which will come into play in the following week. So Anthony then spends more time. He doesn't have to do much. He's got a great relationship with Dane. He's completely safe. So it's mostly just positioning and maneuvering, trying to make sure that Sam goes home. He works on his relationship with Chelsea and tries to flip her away from Sam, but does not find much success in this particular plan. Anthony, he does a lot of he kind of has a shotgun approach in many ways where Dane really was able to hone in on a lot of different people who were his allies for most of the season. Anthony really spreads out as much as possible. He makes a lot of attempts at things, and he doesn't succeed with a lot of them, but the ones that he does, he really digs in deep on, and then he focuses on those a lot. So it's like a wide approach that goes very narrow, whereas Dane had a more balanced approach that stayed balanced the whole time. So it's very, very contrasting styles of play here. So this is one of such attempts. He tries to get Chelsea to flip on Sam. It's of course not going to work. And we say of course, but we've seen him do similar things with other people before. So I think that's one of the reasons why Anthony has so many crazy moves, is that he's willing to try things that other people wouldn't even think to try, that they'd be like, of course that's not going to work. Anthony sometimes makes it work, but most of the time he doesn't. So Mackie is on the block. He tells Anthony that Adam needs to go. Adam, he's dangerous. Adam needs to go. Esty tells Anthony the same thing. A lot of people talking about targeting Adam. So Anthony tries to make sure that the target is shifted onto Sam. When Anthony tells Adam, hey, I've protected you all game, this is what he means. He's always trying to make sure the target lands on Sam instead of Adam. But he does let Adam know that these people are saying his name and that he's deflecting to make sure it goes on to Sam. But because Mackie is talking about targeting Adam, Anthony starts to get on board with the idea of, okay, maybe we need to let Mackie go. Prior to that, he was on board with keeping Mackie to go after Sam, but because Mackie was talking about Adam instead of Sam, he was like, I don't like that. Maybe we should let Mackie go. Okay. Anthony also mentions here in week 2, after the veto is won by Adam, that he wants to start pulling in Corey. He feels like that's somebody that he can work on. He doesn't make a lot of moves to do it yet, but he starts to lay the groundwork. He starts to have conversations with Corey. And so that begins here in week 2. He also talks to Kaylin about potentially not having the votes to keep Mackie, because he's now on board with potentially evicting Mackie. He tries to float the idea to Kaylin, and Kaylin shuts it right down. Kaylin is having none of it. She's like, no, we have the votes. Don't you dare flip. And so that is going to be like, whoa. Okay, he has a very close relationship with Kaylin up until this point, but I think he starts to realize that she is going to be hard to manipulate, and that's dangerous for him. So Anthony does at this point agree to take out Mackie because he is threatening and he is gunning for Adam. And so with Anthony come the rest of the pretty boys. Dane reluctantly agrees to this, that Mackie will leave. Anthony also is going to work on Eddie, who he has a good relationship with at this point in time. They talk about watching each other's backs, that they're good with each other. And he tells Eddie, I'm going to make sure you're not on the wrong side of this vote. I'll let you know which way it falls. And so that's a very important relationship that is going to eventually deteriorate as well. But right now, it's very strong. They're really talking to each other about the vote, and Anthony is trying to help Eddie out to make sure he's on the right side of things. So Anthony and Dane are talking, and even though Kaylin is maybe hard to manipulate, even though she's talking about the guys working with each other, they still would prefer Kaylin over Sam, and they know that Kaylin is gunning for Sam, and that's why they want to keep Kaylin around. They feel like Kaylin and Sam are two sides of the same coin, and Kaylin is on their side and Sam is on Adam's side. So what they would hope to do is keep Kaylin safe and get Sam out, then go after Kaylin, because that would be the best way forward for them. And again, it's those two together working in tandem here, more so than the pretty boys in this particular instance. So Esty is going to talk to Mackie. After Dane tells Esty that Mackie is probably going to leave, Esty's like, no. Esty goes to Mackie. She tells him what to say. Say you're going after Sam. That's what people want to hear. Mackie says, okay. He talks to Anthony. He says, I'm going after Sam. Anthony says, that's what I want to hear. Anthony goes to Dane and he says, all right, never mind. Let's keep Mackie. I like this. Mackie's going after Sam. This is good. They go to Adam. Adam is like, no, I don't like this. I don't want this. I don't want Mackie to stay. I want Kira to stay. And they're like, sorry, bro. It's got to be Mackie. Mackie's staying here. But then, as I talked about yesterday with Dane's game, Mackie shoves several feet into his mouth and keeps talking. He tells Dane at various points that he's going to put Dane up. He tells other people that he's going to put Anthony up. And then he tells Anthony that he told other people that he's putting Anthony up. And Anthony's like, why would you say that, man? I'm disappointed in you. Then Anthony goes to Esty and says, Esty, I don't know about this. Mackie's now saying he's going to put me on the block. And Esty tells Anthony, don't worry about it. I control Mackie. He won't actually put you up. I will tell him what to do and he'll do it. And that was the worst thing you could have said to Anthony, because Anthony then goes to Dane and says, this is no good. Mackie's a puppet, and I don't know if he's my puppet. It seems like he's Esty's puppet. He's saying my name. Esty says that she controls him. That's not good. We can't work with a puppet like that. He's too threatening. Mackie needs to go. Dane says, no, I don't care. That's fine. Mackie should stay. Mackie's going after Sam. Come on, Anthony. But Anthony pushes, and Dane eventually relents, saying, okay, fine. We'll keep Mackie around. Or sorry, we'll evict Mackie. Anthony then gives Eddie the heads up. Mackie is, in fact, leaving. He said my name. I have to vote him out. Eddie says, okay, I'll vote him out. Should I tell Kaylin? And Anthony says, no, don't tell Kaylin. Don't tell Kaylin. So he doesn't, and then we get Kira and Chelsea. Once Anthony finally hops on board for real, they celebrate with Anthony that he's staying. He's developed a good relationship with them. They feel very grateful to Anthony that he's going to help them stay, or help them stay. So then we get to the vote. And we know what happens here. Kaylin ends up flipping Eddie and Damian at the last minute, and it becomes a 5-5 tie. Dane breaks the tie to evict Mackie, breaking his word. And Anthony was, in fact, a vote to evict Mackie. But the fact that Kaylin flipped those votes is very, very bad for Anthony, actually, because Kaylin and Eddie were two allies of his that he could have used moving forward. And this is going to really draw a line between them that will be hard to cross back over. And as we start talking about Anthony and potential jury votes in the end, we definitely have to look at people like Eddie, people like Kaylin that he was forced to lose pre-jury that might have been votes for him if they had made the jury, and his inability to control them or at least get them on board or at least have them win competitions is going to be one factor when it comes to, getting them to jury, getting a jury vote. So that's something to think about as we go here. So, heading into week 3, nobody would target Anthony if they won the HOH. He is completely safe at this point. He is currently working with the Pretty Boys and Dane. Dane as a final 2, Pretty Boys as the group collective. He has good relationships with Chelsea, Kaylin, Eddie, and Kira, although those are going to start to shift a little bit. He is neutral with Kiki, Esty, Damian, and Corey at this point in time. Those will also shift. And he is at the moment targeting Sam. He wants Sam to go. However, Chelsea is going to win this HOH, and Sam is going to be safe. So, Chelsea wants to backdoor Kaylin. This is partly the work of Adam. Kaylin did not do herself any favors. Kaylin and Kira had been getting into some fights. Chelsea is obviously close to Kira, so by proxy, Chelsea is going to be a bit against Kaylin, as is Sam, and Adam, of course, has been feeding into that ever since he found out that Kaylin has been talking about a guy's thing and that Kaylin is coming for him. So, the plan is to backdoor Kaylin. It's at this point that Anthony decides, you know what? I can't get Sam out. I guess we have to let Mama K go. I love her. I want to work with her, but we gotta let her go. She has been talking about the guys working together. She did just flip those votes that to work against us. She is dangerous to leave in the house. So as he talked about, Sam and Kaylin, really two sides of the same coin. And if they can't get out Sam, then they probably have to get out Kaylin. So that's okay with Anthony. Anthony and Chelsea are really going to have an interesting relationship throughout the week. They've really flirt around the idea of like working together. Anthony, kind of prods Chelsea. He knows about the plan to backdoor Kaylin, and Chelsea doesn't tell him for a while. And so he tries to give her openings to tell him to make sure that she knows that she can trust him. And she eventually does tell him the plan after a while. And they really start to build something that gets interrupted when Kira finally goes to Chelsea and says, I feel like Anthony is a little bit sketchy. But we'll talk about that later in the week of week 3. So in the meantime, Damian and Kiki are going to go up on the block. This is when Chelsea finally lets Anthony in on the plan. Anthony tells Chelsea that, Kaylin, she's very manipulative, and she's like Chucky. She's like the doll Chucky. She's like scary. Esty is going to talk to Anthony about how much she doesn't like Mark, and Anthony gives Mark a heads up, which is going to sketch them out a little bit, but they're not going to blame Anthony for it. They're going to blame Dane for it a little bit, and Adam to some extent. Kaylin is going to talk with Eddie, and this is when, this whole thing happened last week. Anthony told Eddie, the votes are not there. Mackie will be voted out. Vote Mackie out. Don't tell Kaylin. Kaylin then flipped Mackie. Mackie hoped that there was a chance that Dane would break the tie to evict Kira. It did not happen. And so Eddie was a little bit sketched out by that whole situation. He tells Kaylin, he trusts Kaylin more. He tells Kaylin, hey, last week, Anthony told me not to tell you about the vote and how Mackie was going to be leaving. And Kaylin says, I don't care. I don't mind. I trust Anthony, and I like that he has connections on the other side. I like that he's with those people. He can help protect us. He can help keep us safe. So Kaylin felt good about Anthony in that moment, but Eddie did not. And Anthony is going to learn and either get a read on or be told from Kaylin herself that Eddie is starting to have doubts about him, and that is going to, like I said, deteriorate that relationship. So Anthony is, at this point, starting to get concerned about Esty and Kiki. He feels like they might be forming an all-women alliance. Dane reassures him, it's not going to happen. I've got them on lock. Don't worry. Don't worry. Anthony is finally going to start making the moves on Corey, pulling her closer in. Like I said, he was laying the groundwork the week before, and here in week 3, he really starts to pull her in closer. He tells her that Sam is gunning for her. He says that Sam is dangerous. He wants to make sure she is anti-Sam. We talked about this in week 3 on the live feed updates about how this is potentially dangerous for Anthony. He's really going out on a limb, turning her against Sam. If this gets back to Sam, Anthony could be caught. But it does not go back to Sam. He says Sam is basically a Kaylin that hasn't been caught yet, and Corey eats it up. She explains that she has been trying to lie low in this game, but she feels like she has found a friend in Anthony. Kira and Chelsea, this is when they're finally going to talk about Anthony and how he likes to play the mentor role and influence people to go after each other. The cause of this is that Anthony tried talking with Kira and tried separating Kira from Adam a little bit, but Kira trusted Adam too much, and so they found that to be a bit sketchy. Why is Anthony trying to turn me against Adam? That's really sketchy. He always likes to play the mentor. He's trying to turn people against each other. So Kira goes to Chelsea, explains that. Chelsea says, well, I feel good with Anthony, but I wonder if everyone feels that way. Maybe he does play the mentor role. Maybe he is sketchy. Maybe he is trying to influence people to go after each other. Chelsea goes to Adam and says, Adam, what do you think about this? Do you think that Anthony is sketchy? I kind of feel like he plays the mentor role and tries to influence people to go after each other. And Adam is like, nah, I think he's cool. And Chelsea's like, oh, please don't tell anyone. I just told you that. And Adam's like, I'm not going to tell anyone. Of course not. She's like, please, I'm begging you, don't tell anyone I told you that. He's like, I'm not going to tell anyone. And then Adam goes and tells Anthony that Chelsea thinks he's sketchy. And Chelsea's dead to him. Bad news bears for Chelsea. So Anthony also tries to turn Adam against Sam because Dane told him that Kiki told him that she overheard Sam say that she needs to get rid of Adam eventually. And if that's confusing to you, good. It doesn't work. Like I said, shotgun approach. Lots of these things don't work, but when they do, they work well. He also floats the idea that Damian is coming for Adam, which is something that Adam should think about. This is Anthony recognizing how much Kaylin does trust him and thinking about potentially flipping the vote. He's never really liked Damian, so it would be kind of great if he could get Damian out this week and keep Kaylin. Kaylin would be so grateful to him. He would have Kaylin as a number and, again, more importantly, as a person on the jury, which could be all he needs. This might have been the mistake here to let Kaylin go. So Anthony, he tries to float this idea to Adam. Damian is coming for you. Adam runs to Chelsea about it. He talks to Sam. They both still want Kaylin to go, even if Damian is coming after him. And Dane and Anthony are very frustrated with Adam that he keeps running to those women. They're too close, and they need to separate him from those women. So Adam, in the meantime, is going to be very frustrated with Anthony. He keeps trying to turn him against Sam. Like, what's happening? And then he's mad at him for going to Chelsea when he told him to go to Chelsea. Like, Adam is kind of done with Anthony in this moment. And this is what we talked about yesterday about Dane's game. Dane liked to play the diplomat. He liked to play the middle in the Pretty Boys. Anthony was firmly on one side, and Adam was on the other in this spot. And it's going to be a contentious relationship for most of the season. This is also when Sam overhears Dane and Adam talking about the Pretty Boys, and this is when they catch on to the fact that there's probably a guys alliance. They think that Anthony must be in on it. They kind of doubt themselves, but for now they've discovered the secret, and the Pretty Boys are dead. How can they move forward now? Can't happen. Dane works on Esty and Kiki to make sure that they're good with Anthony, and so Anthony starts moving in on that group and that alliance. And this is when Anthony is starting to really seriously consider flipping the vote to keep Kaylin. He can if he wants. He talks to Corey about it, and Corey is on board. He's fully pulled Corey in at this point. I literally have in my notes, as early as week 3, I wrote, Corey seems firmly in Anthony's pocket at this point. So there you go. Week 3, the Kaylin vote, that's when Anthony 100% had Corey on lock by this time. So Anthony then approaches Kiki and Esty about flipping the vote and convinces them to go along with it if he wants. If he decides to, he can convince Kiki and Esty to vote out Damian, and he likes that. But he's still unsure. He's not sure. He's not sure if it's worth exposing himself as a power broker by keeping Kaylin here. So he causes a little bit of chaos the next morning. He needs to convince Adam that if this flip goes through, that this is what Adam wants too. He tells Adam, hey, I was talking to Kiki and Esty last night, and they said Damian is coming for you. Adam was like, oh my God. So Adam runs around. He talks to Damian. He talks to Kaylin. The vote looks like it might flip, but it does not. Eventually, Anthony backs down. And he agrees, okay, fine, we'll get rid of Kaylin, but we're not bringing Damian in. We're not doing that because Adam wants to bring him in. He says, well, here's what we'll do. We'll go to Damian. We'll bring him in to the guys thing. And Anthony was like, no. We'll get rid of Kaylin, but we're not bringing Damian in. So, as I mentioned before, Anthony is also recognizing that Eddie is becoming a threat that they need to start looking at. Their relationship has deteriorated in the week since the Mackey vote, and he knows that Eddie has been talking about him. So that's bad news bears for Eddie. And Kaylin is going to be evicted this week, and Anthony did, in fact, vote to evict her. So, heading into week 4, Sam and Kira might actually target Anthony if they won the HOH this week. And by target Anthony, I mean put him on the block, probably. But basically here, Sam or Kira, if they had won this HOH, and Sam did come quite close, Sam probably would have put up Dane and Anthony actually probably would go home next to Dane in that spot. So he is very lucky that Sam did not end up winning this one and that Dane beat her in that final buzzer push, because this was one of the more dangerous spots for Anthony in the game after being caught in the alliance and the women really about to potentially take a shot at the guys. I do think Anthony would have been the one to take that bullet because they did not know that Mark was part of it yet. They only knew Adam, Dane, and Anthony, and so they were not going to target Adam of that group. They probably would have put Dane and Anthony on the block, and Anthony probably would have been the one to go home in that spot. So luckily, didn't happen. Sam did not win for Anthony. At this point in time, he is working with the Pretty Boys. He's working with Dane. He's got Corey. He's working with Corey. And he's also working with Kiki, Esty, and Dane. So he's now feeling, he's now working with a lot more people. And like I said, this working with list can vary quite dramatically throughout the game with Anthony. He's kind of neutral with Damian. He's not on great terms with Chelsea, Sam, Kira, or Eddie. All of those people starting to look at Anthony a little bit sideways. So this is not the greatest week for him position-wise. But as I said, luckily, Dane is going to win this HOH. Anthony in this week is targeting Sam. He's targeting Chelsea, and he's targeting Eddie. Those are his 3 main targets here. Sam, obviously the primary one, but he's also starting to look at Chelsea a lot because of what Adam told him about Chelsea not trusting him. And he recognized that when he was, flirting around with the working with Chelsea maybe thing, he recognized that Chelsea was hard to manipulate. Now, I've seen a lot of people like, oh, Anthony, he's playing against weak players. That's the only reason that he is manipulating them. If he tried to manipulate people, if he tried to speak to people from Big Brother Canada 6 the way he speaks to Kira, then it would never work and they'd never be manipulated. But I think that to counter that argument, you have to look at how he spoke to Chelsea in week 3, because he recognized that he couldn't speak to Chelsea the way that he spoke to Kira. He approached Chelsea in an entirely different manner. And he was very, very cautious. And what he does is he pokes around the exterior. He finds the weakness. He presses the weakness. He uses it to exploit you. He then mentors you and helps heal you from that weakness. And in the meantime, he's manipulating you. And so I think that the idea that he is just this blunt force that only works on weak people, I don't think so. I think that he was able to work on all kinds of people throughout the season, like Chelsea, like Kaylin, like Kira, even like Mark and some of these other guys. Adam really was the only person that never fully bought into what Anthony said. But even then, and Adam was manipulated by Anthony at various points in the game. So never mind, I take that back. Everybody was manipulated by Anthony at one point in time through various methods of manipulation, not always just the most obvious versions of it. So something to point out there. So Dane wins the HOH. Him and Anthony immediately conspire, and they discuss targeting Sam as the back door, and they're going to lie to Adam about it, and Mark is usually left out of these planning sessions. Like I said, it's always Dane and Anthony, at least up until this point. He also talks about Esty wanting Sam out. He talks to Esty about how Esty wants Sam out. She's pumped. She's like, yes, we're going to get Sam out of the game. The next day, after the HOH, Anthony starts to have second thoughts about Sam. He goes to Dane and he says, you know what? Sam actually is beneficial to us. She's a big target and she helps hide the pretty boys, and it might not be best for us to be the ones to take her out. That's just to make Adam mad. I think we can convince other people to do it for us. I think that we can get somebody else to take the shot at Sam. Meanwhile, Chelsea is a threat to us. Maybe we should actually take Chelsea out this week and let somebody else do the targeting on Sam. Dane says, no, I want Sam gone. I don't like that. So Anthony's like, all right, just a thought. Adam, in the meantime, is still very frustrated with Anthony from the week before. Anthony's still trying to get him to target Sam, to let Sam go home, and he is venting that frustration out on Mark. And this is a great moment for Mark and his eventual relationship with Anthony. Mark tells Adam, look, I know you're frustrated with Anthony. Anthony's easy to manipulate, because all you need to do is pretend to be manipulated by Anthony, and then you'll be in his good graces and he's easy to manipulate from there. Now, at the time, I think a lot of us, myself included, felt like Mark was onto something. That Anthony definitely was easy to manipulate, in the sense that if you pretended to be manipulated by him, that things would be good, that he would like you and he would want to keep you around and all of that stuff. Turns out, not the case, as Mark will find out at the final five. Anthony actually is not easily persuaded by that tactic. And he usually is able to catch on to the fact that you are not actually manipulated by him if you are not. So he was able to sniff out that Mark was not loyal to him, even though Mark pretended to be for quite a while. What are you going to do? Esty and Kiki talk about the possibility of a guys' alliance here in week 4. They keep trying to target all the women over Adam. What's up with that? It's sketchy. It would be smart of them to have a guys' alliance. It would be smart. But you know what? Nah, we trust Dane. We trust Anthony. We like those two. They're working for us, so it doesn't matter. We like them. Chelsea and Kira go up on the block. Dane puts them up. He still wants to backdoor Sam, so that's the plan. Kira tries to catch Adam running info to Dane, and this is a big moment for Chelsea's game, because Kira succeeds, and Adam they catch Adam running information to Dane, and then they kind of let it slip that they think the guys are working together, that Adam and Dane are working together. There's some kind of guys thing, and Anthony, he goes, I got this. He uses that information to plant the target back on Chelsea with Dane. He says, if Kira is talking about a guys' alliance, you know that's coming from Chelsea. Chelsea has to go. Dane finally relents and says, okay, we'll get rid of Chelsea instead of Sam this week. We'll do it your way. So once again, Anthony is going to get his way. Esty, at this point, says to the cameras, Kiki is my number 1. Dane is my number 2. Anthony is my number 3. Number 3, Anthony. Adam tries to get the target placed on Kira instead of Chelsea, but Anthony won't have it and will not let it happen. Corey is going to win the veto. She consults Anthony about what to do. He tells her to talk to Dane and use it to get closer to him, to help forge that relationship and get Kira in closer to Dane. He likes having his allies working together so that he doesn't have to turn on any of them. Anthony then lets Mark know that Damian is dangerous. Eddie needs to go soon. Eddie, he can't be brought back into the fold. Things are not looking good for Eddie. Dane tells the cameras that he is true to his final 2 with Anthony. They are getting together on the regular and discussing their final 2 plans. They've been doing that all the way through this week, in past weeks, and Dane is talking to the cameras, telling them that this is genuine, that Anthony is his guy. It's going to be Dane and Anthony. It's going to be fantastic. Eddie tries to tell Damian that Dane and Anthony tried to flip the vote against him the week before. Damian does not believe him. He trusts Dane. Corey helps cover for Dane and Anthony when Damian asks her about it. Damian tells Dane about this, who tells Anthony, who only takes this to be further confirmation that he needs to get rid of Eddie soon. Very soon. Sam first, then Eddie. So then Anthony is going to be working on Kira throughout the week. This is really the beginnings of Anthony's true work with Kira. He did have a decent relationship with Kira the week before, but he really tries to keep that going here with Kira, maintain a good enough relationship with them at this point in time. Especially because he is going to be a vote to keep Kira in the game. So he's working on that relationship. They're in the same bedroom together, so that helps them as well. Chelsea is then going to be evicted. Anthony is, in fact, a vote to evict her. And we have a double eviction. In the double eviction, if Sam won the double eviction, she might nominate Anthony. In fact, I think she would likely nominate Anthony if she won. And he would definitely go home if he was up against Dane. He would stay if he was up against Corey. And bit of a toss-up on what would happen there. He definitely could have gone home in this double eviction. It is a possibility. More likely that Corey goes home, but he could have gone home here. And these things matter when we're comparing Dane and Anthony's game, because I do feel like Dane was a lot safer in these spots. At this point in time, he's working with the pretty boys. He's working with Dane, he's working with Corey, and he's working with Kiki, Esty, and Dane as a group. He has a good relationship with Kira. He's neutral with Damian. He's not on great terms with Sam or Eddie. He's targeting Sam, secondarily targeting Eddie. Adam is going to win HOH, and Eddie's going to go home. Just like that, one of his targets done. Anthony did vote Eddie out. Week 5. Same setup here. Still working with the same people. Still good with the same people. Not on great terms with Sam. But Eddie being gone is great. And he's going to be targeting Sam. However, Sam wins the HOH. Now, Sam wanted to put Anthony on the block. She did. She wanted to take a shot at Anthony and did not, because Kira and Adam were like, hey, no, don't target Anthony. Don't put up Anthony. Don't put up Anthony and Corey. You should put up other people. Like Kiki and maybe Mark, whatever. So Anthony is protected here from Sam's HOH. This could have been a bad spot for him, but he is protected by Adam and Kira. They tell Sam that Sam should build trust with Anthony, that they can work with Anthony and Corey. So Sam takes Anthony to Wendy's and they talk about building trust. Anthony is going to give Dane the heads up after the Wendy's talk and let him know what they talked about at Wendy's, and says, hey, Mark is going to be going up on the block with Kiki. They once again reiterate their final two. They talk about, keeping Mark safe, flipping the vote to keep him if necessary. Blood veto happens. People notice that Corey ran straight to Dane and Anthony at that point during the blood veto, that she was going to them basically for instructions. And that's the perception that Corey is being used by them, or at least is a tool for them, is really spawning from this moment here with the blood veto. Sam and Kira are really talking about targeting guys. They really want to make sure a guy leaves. This is due to Esty's campaigning, plus the knowledge that they have about the potential guys alliance. And so when they talk about potential guy targets, Anthony is not one of them. Anthony has done good enough work with Sam and Kira that they both feel good about Anthony. They do not want Anthony to be targeted. If the worst happens, they eventually settle on Damian, of all people, because they think that Damian would need to leave as one of the guys. Oh boy. Adam and Dane are going to try and push for the Corey backdoor. They really want Corey to be backdoored. Sam is initially reluctant because she doesn't want to make Anthony mad. But Kira, but eventually relents and says, "Okay, Adam, we'll do the Corey backdoor." Then Kira tells Anthony about the Corey backdoor plan. Kira doesn't really want it to happen, and Kira thinks that they can get in further with Anthony and Corey if they let Anthony know. And so once Anthony finds out, he gets to work. He talks to Adam and lets him know how to get Sam on board to take out Kiki. He says, "No, look, this is what you need to do, Adam." Adam listens to him. This is when he is able to manipulate Adam into keeping Corey around, and he convinces Adam to convince Sam. And through his words that Adam speaks, Sam is convinced to take out Kiki. And Kira, in the meantime, based on their conversation with Anthony, feels like Anthony is anti-Dane and that the boys thing is cracked. And so they don't have to use the blood veto. They want Kiki to leave. This is magic that Anthony performs here this week. That what he is able to do, it's ridiculous. First of many. So the pretty boys do get into some fights here about the side alliances, who they're going to take to the final five. Anthony really sticks up for Corey. Dane really wants Esty to be taken. Adam and Mark would like Kira. And Kira is kind of a nice secondary person for Anthony if Corey is not going to make it. So Anthony does stick up for Kira a little bit as well. And so kind of 3-1, they agree Kira is probably the best choice here. So Dane is going to give Anthony the heads up that Esty's been saying his name, and it's because it's becoming clear to Esty that Anthony is not on their side anymore. Esty last week was saying Anthony was her number 3. Anthony is now in her bad book list thing. It's a target for the young bloods because she can tell that Anthony is not on their side. He's going to be voting Kiki out. She doesn't like that. So Dane gives Anthony the heads up there, and Esty is going to become a target for Anthony. Kira is going to bond more with Corey and Anthony throughout the week. This is they tell them, hey, it was Dane that convinced Adam to convince Sam to backdoor you, Corey. And then after Kira leaves, Anthony's like, nah, that's not how it happened. There's more to that story. It was not Dane. I don't believe it was Dane. Dane and Anthony, again, reiterate their final two. They're talking about this a lot still. Dane and Anthony, final two. Anthony starts to work on Mark, though. And this is because he is a little bit disappointed that Dane was, because Anthony knows that Dane really was trying to get Corey backdoored, and Dane did not tell him. He's still protecting Dane, but he's disappointed in Dane. And so this is a very clear starting point for the Mark and Anthony relationship. Anthony tells Mark, hey, the other guys, they've been sketchy. Adam's been with Sam, and now Dane is really looking out for his best interests. He wants to keep Kiki around this week. That's not good for us. Mark says, I'm with you. I want to get closer to Corey. Anthony says, good, I'll help you out. I like that. This is Mark in some ways trying to manipulate Anthony to get closer to Anthony and use Anthony to break up the pretty boys. That's what Mark would like to do. We know that Mark eventually gets caught in Anthony's trap, Anthony's web, but for now he thinks this is a great opportunity. Anthony and Kira and Corey are going to bond even more. Like I said, they're in the same bedroom still, and this is when they do their study session. They're really starting to bond as a trio, a group of 3 that they're really good together. Kira really feels good about their position in the game at this point. They really feel like they've turned Anthony and Corey against Dane. They've got Sam and Adam against Dane. Adam, Sam, Corey, and Anthony do make a deal, the 4 of them, excluding Kira, which Kira will be mad about later. But Anthony and Corey say, we're not going to stick to this deal. Anthony says, they're sketchy. We're making a deal with them for now, but we're not going to stick to it. Corey gives Anthony the heads up that Kira is trying to target Dane, and it's not great. But Corey at this moment does not want to target Sam. She tells Anthony this: I don't want to target Sam. She feels good about her relationship with Sam, and this was genuine. This was real. Corey is bonding with Sam in this toward the end of this week, and really starting to feel good about Sam. Anthony, of course, is going to turn that around over the next few days, but for now, doesn't want to target Sam. Anthony also spends a lot of time trying to work on Damian this week, but it doesn't really go anywhere. Damian is not very susceptible to Anthony's manipulation. And honestly, thinking about it, Damian is probably the one person that Anthony was never truly able to manipulate. And that's one of the reasons why he was never very fond of Damian. You might actually say Eddie was another one of those people, just because, I mean, Eddie was on Anthony's side at one point, but as soon as he got a whiff of sketchiness from Anthony, he never went back. That spelled Eddie's doom, but Damian was able to hang in there for a bit longer. But this week in particular, Anthony, he tries a lot. He tries very hard. He spends a lot of time working on Damian, but he doesn't really get anywhere. So again, shotgun approach. He also tries to get Adam to throw the next HOH, which doesn't really work. And he also bonds with Kira even more. They talk about Kira's BPD. Kira starts really going to him for emotional support and stuff like that. They're very close at this point in time. So Kiki is going to be evicted here. Anthony does vote her out. Heading into week 6, once again, nobody will target Anthony if they win HOH. He is back on the side of everything good and happy. This is his strongest point in the game. He's working with the pretty boys. He's got a final 2 with Dane, with Corey. He's working with Mark. He's working with Sam, Adam, and Corey. He's also working with Kira and Corey. He's neutral with Damian, and he's not on great terms with Esty, but that's basically it. His targets at this point are Sam, Damian, and Esty a little bit. So that's the current state of Anthony. But Corey's going to win this HOH, which means he's got to put some work in. He gives Dane the heads up. You need to sell to Corey that you had nothing to do with the backdoor plan. I'm going to help you out. I'm going to soften her up. And so he does. He says to Corey, hey, Sam is sketchy. She was probably the person who started this backdoor plan. I believe Dane. Dane comes in, finishes the job. He's got all these people corroborating his story. All the stories line up. Adam, Sam, and Kira's stories do not line up. So that's it's not good for Sam. And he eventually lands on Esty and Dane for the nominations with a plan to backdoor Sam. That's what Anthony has in store for Corey's HOH. Corey goes to the Wendy's window, and Dimitri tells her that he never once doubted his partner on Big Brother Canada 5, and that staying loyal is a great thing. Be loyal. Corey's like, man, it's like you and me, Anthony. Got to be loyal to each other to the end, no doubts. Anthony's like, yeah, I like that. Anthony starts planting seeds against Damian here in week 6. Seeds against Damian with Corey to make sure that he separates Corey from Damian. It's not good for Damian. Corey was his only real ally. Says Damian's too close to Esty. They're too close. You can't trust Damian. Can't trust him. Anthony tells Corey, this is a legendary move. You're going to take Sam out. This is legendary. This is really the beginning of Anthony using this as a manipulation tactic. This is legendary. You're going to be a legend. Corey's like, yeah, I'm going to be a legend like Dimitri. Anthony gives Kira a pep talk after a fight with Dane and encourages them to make up with him. The seeds against Damian start to grow as Corey starts to recognize and see things that they weren't seeing before. Oh, I see him talk with Esty all the time now. Anthony, you're totally right. Whoa, wow, I can't believe I noticed something after you pointed it out even more. It's almost like that's a psychological effect or something. Anthony spends a lot of time working Kira this week, trying to make sure that he can retain them as a number, even though he's about to blindside their closest ally. Does not work out exactly how he wants, but he does spend a lot of time working on it planting seeds for a reconciliation that will happen later. Anthony also helps Mark get closer to Corey. On Mark's request. Sam is going to go up on the block, and Kira is going to be very mad. Anthony tries to work the situation, but Kira is having none of it. They recognize that Anthony is behind this, that Anthony is not trying to keep Sam safe, and they are very frustrated with Anthony. They don't like it. The relationship really starts to degrade from here. Anthony, in the meantime, is getting even closer with Mark. He has brought Dane in with Corey, but he is also working with Mark. He's now kind of double dealing with Dane and Mark. This is when he says, because he also is able to get, once Sam goes on the block and Adam accepts that Sam is going home, Anthony is like, I feel like I'm Charles Xavier in here. I'm like Charles Xavier. It's mind control. He continues to veto the idea of bringing Damian into the guys thing. Make sure that Damian does not get in with the guys, that he's separated from Corey, and no Damian. None of it. None of it. He discusses with Mark that Damian or Esty need to be the next to go. Those are the next targets. Damian and Esty. Dane and Adam are starting to want Corey gone soon, but Anthony says that's a bad idea. Corey is good for us. Corey's good. Sam and Kira get more and more annoyed with Anthony as the week goes on, but at this point, Anthony has fully turned Corey against Damian, saying that Damian probably knew about the backdoor plan, and Corey's like, yeah, you're right. Damian's the worst. Kira still wants to take Anthony far in the game, even though the relationship has deteriorated. And the reason is because Anthony is weak. Kira sees Anthony as weak in the game, so he's a good person to take to the end, even though they're very annoyed with him at this point in time. This is also the week where Anthony puts Adam in his place, because he's blowing bubbles into Sam's mouth. You shower together. You shower together. And that happened. Sam is evicted. Anthony did vote her out. So, heading into week 7. Once again, nobody will target Anthony if they win this HOH. He is currently working with the pretty boys. He's got Dane, he's got Mark, and he's got Corey. He's somewhat neutral with Damian and Esty. He has tried to repair his relationship with Esty from the whole Kiki situation, and it has somewhat worked, but so he's kind of neutral with them at this point. Not on great terms with Kira at the moment. Even though Kira is kind of willing to let Anthony come to the end game because he's weak, Kira is not pleased with Anthony and does not like him at this point in time. And he is going to be targeting Damian and Esty. Those are his targets here. Mark wins the next HOH, and Anthony is going to spend time immediately trying to bond with Kira once again. He talks about his family, his mother, and his father. He also is going to talk with Mark. Mark wants to nominate Adam with either Damian or Esty. He does not want to nominate Corey. Dane is annoyed at that. Dane is very annoyed. He's starting to get annoyed at Mark. He's also starting to get annoyed at Anthony because he recognizes that Anthony is the cause of Mark being unwilling to put Corey on the block. Anthony, in the meantime, is okay with Adam being nominated, but he would rather Damian and Esty just go straight up on the block. He says if Adam does get nominated, I need to make a final 3 with Adam and Corey. So he does so. He talks to Adam. He tells Adam, he says, Adam, you need to go in. You need to act mad. And then say all these things that you've been acting like a dummy. And he gives Adam a whole script to talk to Corey about. Adam does the whole script. Corey's like, whoa, yeah. And then Corey goes to Anthony, and she tells him what Adam told her, which is what Anthony told Adam to tell her, and then Anthony's like, oh wow, that's great, you did such a great job, you're such a legend, Corey. And then I talked about this in the live feed updates. This is another fantastic moment from Anthony. He's literally giving people scripts to read from, and it works like a charm. So Corey feels good about Adam. She feels good about Adam. But even though she feels good about Adam, she still was talking about taking a shot at him if presented with the opportunity. And Anthony doesn't particularly like that at this point in time. So that's something to note. Anthony does not like that Mark made the decision to put up Adam without his input. This is, I think, one of the marks against Mark here, that Mark really came up with the decision to go Adam and somebody else without talking to Anthony. And then when talking to Anthony, Anthony suggested maybe we just do Damian and Esty. And Mark said, no, I want to do Adam. Anthony did not like that. So Anthony and Kira are going to get into an argument. This is about who was more obsessed with who. Kira, you followed Chelsea around. Oh, Anthony, you follow Corey around. They get into an argument there, and then they make up. They have, like I said, this very contentious relationship throughout the season, but a very high emotional state here between the two of them. Then Anthony finds out that Dane... Well, he doesn't find out that but Dane works on Mark, has been working on Mark all week long to get him to backdoor Corey. He finally pushes it through, and Mark agrees to backdoor Corey. Mark then tells Anthony, look, if the veto is used and somebody comes down, you're not going to like the result. And Anthony says, what? He goes straight to Dane and he's like, Adam is the worst. I can't believe he's doing this. He yells. He had yelled at Adam before they get into this whole thing. Adam comes in. He's like, oh, Adam's gonna be in here. Oh, look, Adam's here. Oh, Adam, why can't we talk? Huh? And this whole thing. I'm not like you, Adam. I'm not like you. This is fine. I don't need Corey to stay, but Corey should stay because she's loyal. You know what happened here. Damian eventually walked in. That was awkward. But Anthony's very, very upset. Very, very upset. He blames Adam. He talks to Mark. He says, you can't let this happen. Corey is with us. But Mark remains flipped by Dane. He sticks with the plan. He says, sorry, man, it's got to be Corey. Adam then wins the veto. And the next day, Anthony goes to work on Mark again. He says, listen to me. Corey loves you. You need to think about yourself, not Adam. Think about yourself. Adam hasn't helped us at all. We've protected Adam this whole season. We don't need to protect him anymore. This is about us. Think about yourself. Corey loves you. Corey will keep you safe in the triple eviction. And he gets Mark to flip once again. Mark now feels good about Anthony and Corey. And Mark is now from this point forward, going to start to talk about Mark, Corey, and Anthony being a thing more so than the pretty boys. That they might want to start taking shots at the pretty boys. He thinks that he can use Anthony, like I said, to take shots against the pretty boys. This spoke to him. This talk of screw the pretty boys, think about yourself. That's what Mark had always been thinking. So Mark turns and he flips and he keeps Corey around, or at least he tries to. Kira is once again very annoyed at Anthony for once again ruining their plans in their game, that Corey is not going on the block. Anthony at this point is so then the Secret Assassin nominates Corey after Anthony manages to get Esty and Damian on the block together. Corey goes up. Those are his two targets. Esty and Damian, they're finally on the block. He made it happen. And then the Secret Assassin puts up Corey, his closest ally. He's pissed. He goes to Dane. He says, Dane, you need to keep Corey. And Dane says, sorry, bro. I think Corey's dangerous. She can beat us. And Anthony says, that doesn't matter. Corey is loyal. That's what matters. And Dane says, dude, it's all right. This is the point where Anthony fully is going to move off of the Dane train and onto the Mark train. Mark is going to be his primary ally from this point forward, for the time being, at the very least. He even tells Mark, Mark, I'm only gonna vote for you or Corey in the final two. Only you or Corey. Pretty upset. The Pretty Boys are going to continue to argue for the rest of the week, but we do know that Corey was eventually evicted. Anthony did not vote to evict Corey. This is the one and only time he does not vote correctly, and it was not his will that Corey went home. I do think we can give him a little bit of a pass because this was a twist. But I think it's less of a pass than I'd give Dane's vote for Esty because that was largely symbolic, whereas this one was genuinely against what Anthony wanted, and he voted to keep Corey in the game. So, we get to week 8. Esty, Damian, and Kira all might target Anthony if they win, but only as a secondary target to Corey, who he will stay against. So if Esty, Damian, or Kira won the HOH, they would likely put up Corey and Anthony, or maybe Corey, Esty might put up Corey and Kira. Damian might put up Corey and Anthony. Actually, Damian probably wouldn't put up Corey. Oh, no, he would. No, Damian would put up Mark, sorry. Esty would probably put up Corey and Mark. Kira would probably put up Corey and Anthony at this point. Damian would probably put up Corey and Mark, but Anthony would probably go up as a renom if Corey won the veto, and then Mark or Anthony could be in danger. Anthony probably not in danger this week is what I'm trying to get at. Many other outcomes that can happen, but there are a few small, tiny outcomes where Anthony might have gone home if the wrong person won HOH and then the wrong person won the veto. Something to think about. This is probably the second worst position he had in the game in terms of being safe. Like I said, it's all over. It varies wildly because last week he was safe. He was 2 weeks ago, he was the safest he'd ever been. Nobody was targeting him. He was working with most of the house. And then 2 weeks later, he's got a lot of people potentially targeting him. And the people he's working with have dramatically gone down. He's working with the Pretty Boys, and within the Pretty Boys he's working with Mark, and that's it. He's got nobody else. He is not on great terms with Esty, Damian, or Kira. He's really in a bit of a tough spot here. This is a low point in Anthony's game. He's targeting Adam. He's pissed at Adam for being the secret assassin. He's targeting Damian. He's targeting Esty. He's targeting Kira. He's targeting a lot of people. Adam wins the HOH. If Anthony had won this HOH, he indicated to us that he was going to take a shot at Adam. Would it have landed? Not likely. Not likely. Adam almost definitely would have won this veto competition anyway, and he likely would not have gone home if he was on the block, unless he was on the block against Dane, which might have been the case, but who knows? Who knows? Anthony is pissed. Adam wins HOH. Anthony is pissed about Corey. He goes off on Kira. Kira is scared of him. This is the whole argument where Anthony sits down on the floor and says, "I'm going to sit and whisper so that I don't intimidate you." That's when this happens, and it's this big argument. Anthony does try to get Kira on the block, but it is unsuccessful. Like I said, shotgun approach. Damian and Esty are going to be the people to go up on the block as a fake backdoor plan for Mark. Anthony does make a concerted effort to get closer to Kira this week, and he tells Mark to do the same. Says, "Mark, you need to get closer to Kira." Mark does so, and it's successful. Damian is going to win the veto, and this is when they have the Pretty Boys they come together. Anthony and Mark discuss, all right, what we need to do is you're going to pitch for Dane to go up on the block instead of you. So that's what Mark does in the Pretty Boy meeting. They convince Dane to go up on the block instead of Mark. And in order to do so, they bring in Kira and they offer Kira a Final 5 deal. Kira accepts it. Dane then makes a Final 3 with Kira, and they talk and they decide Dane should not go on the block. They tell Anthony this, and Anthony is like, I don't like that. Dane should go on the block, but he eventually concedes, okay, fine. Mark will go on the block. Mark and Anthony had talked about, hey, if Dane is on the block, maybe we should take a shot. Probably not. But maybe we might be able to. So that was something that they were considering, but it was cut short because Mark ended up on the block instead. And Dane also let Anthony know that he made a final 3 with Kira, so Anthony had that information. He then used that information to flip Kira against Dane and make sure that Kira ends up targeting Dane moving forward from this week. So Kira is now talking to the cameras about a final 3 with Adam and either Anthony or Mark. That's their ideal final 3 at this point in time. Mark and Anthony then discuss their target for the double. Mark wants to target Dane. Anthony says, no, not Dane. It should be Adam. Adam. Target Adam in the double eviction. Okay. So, Esty is evicted. Anthony did vote to evict her. And we have a double eviction. Once again, nobody will target Anthony in this HOH if they win. He's working with the Pretty Boys and Mark. He's on good terms now with Kira. He flipped that relationship around. He is not on good terms with Damian, who would put him on the block if Damian won. But Anthony, Damian would target Anthony, but the target would be somebody like Adam or Mark. So Anthony would probably stay in that spot. Anthony's probably completely safe here at the double eviction. He is targeting Adam, Dane, and Damian in the double eviction. Those are the people he would like to go home. Dane wins this HOH. He puts up Damian. Damian goes home. Just like that, we're into week 9. Week 9. Same setup. He's still targeting Adam and Dane. Kira wins the HOH. We saw all this play out very recently, but we're going to go through it very quickly. Anyway, Anthony throws Adam under the bus to Kira. Now remember, just last week, Kira had been flipped by Anthony against Dane. He used the information about the final 3. This is a very important move. And again, if you want details, then you should go and listen to the relevant updates or even the roundtables where we discuss in a little more detail. But basically, he went to Kira with the knowledge that Dane had made a final 3 with them. He said Dane has made other final 3s with Damian. He's made final 3 with Esty. He's made all sorts of final 3s. Don't believe Dane when he makes a final 3. He's probably made one with you. And if he did, then you wouldn't have to stay loyal to that final 3. That's when Kira decides to go against Dane. But at that point, they still wanted Adam to work with them. They still wanted Adam in the final 3. So it is not until the morning after Kira's HOH win when Anthony talks to them and says, hey, Adam manipulates you. Adam has a final 2 deal with Dane. He's going to take Dane to the final 2. Adam, what they talk about, how he brings up Sam in order to manipulate you. At that point, Kira then started to talk about, maybe I should nominate Adam next to Dane because then Adam can't use the veto on Dane. And they were very okay with that once they found out that Adam is not on their side as much as they thought he was. Adam is no longer in Kira's final 3 plans. So, Adam and Dane go on the block. Anthony says, Mark, this is my HOH. It's my HOH. Adam blows up, as we saw. He blows up. He says, Anthony, you were trying to get Kira on the block last week, and now I'm on the block. And Anthony denies it, and they get into a whole big thing. But in the middle of the fight, Adam says, hey, stop this. He hugs him. They cry. Anthony changes his mind. He no longer wants Adam to go home. Adam is loyal. He sees it. He sees that Adam's loyal. Dane, not loyal. Dane was happy about this whole situation. So he changes his mind. He goes to Adam. He convinces Adam. He says, hey, I'm going to keep you. And then he spills all of the information he's been holding on to with Dane all season long. He finally lets it loose and tells Adam that Dane has been playing him. Adam isn't sure whether to believe Anthony. But Anthony wants to keep him, and he's happy about that. So Anthony proposes a final 2 to Adam, and Adam accepts the final 2. Adam then wins the veto. After Adam wins the veto, Anthony goes to Dane and he says, look, man, I'm sorry. The only thing is, the thing is, you weren't loyal. You evicted Corey. You shouldn't have done that. You were not on my side. Dane is upset, but he says, I'm not out yet. The next morning, he pitches to Anthony. He says, man, you need me. I love you. Kobe and Shaq worked together. Even though they disagreed, we win. We'll win together. You need me. I got this calendar. It's got macaroni. We got this. And Anthony, again, changes his mind. Decides he's going to keep Dane and evict Mark. Mark, who has been telling him that Kira is talking about taking Mark to the final 2. And Mark says, don't worry, I'm loyal to you, Anthony. I'm manipulated by you, Anthony. Don't worry. But Anthony sees through it and decides that Dane is more genuine. So, Anthony evicts Mark from the game, but not before convincing Kira that this is the best move for Kira. He goes to Kira and says, hey, Mark's been saying your name. Mark's really dangerous. Mark has a rhyme. And Kira's like, why aren't we getting Mark out? And Anthony's like, I don't know. Maybe that's a good idea. Great on you for thinking about it, Kira. He does have to stay on top of Kira and convince them multiple times throughout the week, telling them they're a lion, they're a legend, all of that stuff. Once again, incredible from Anthony what he is capable of doing here. But we do have to talk about whether this was the right move, because heading into the Final Four, Dane is going to win the next HOH. Anthony has final 2 deals with each of the remaining Final 4. He's got one with Dane, with Adam, and with Kira. He's targeting Adam, probably. So Dane wins HOH. They talk about their final 2. They're going to do it. They're going to evict Adam if they can. Adam loses the final veto. Dane wins it. And they discuss when they're going to break it to Adam that Adam is leaving. So, assuming that they evicted Adam, heading into the final 3, Anthony has final 2 deals with Kira and Dane. Now, he made the move to keep Dane at the final 5 over Mark. We know from Mark, because I spoke to him, that Mark was not planning on taking Anthony to the final 2. Mark did not think that he could win against Anthony. He wanted to take Kira. We don't know whether Dane will take Anthony to the final 2 or not. But Mark probably would not have won or had as much of a chance to win in the final 3. So there are a lot of things to consider here, right? With Dane, if you have Dane in the game and it's Dane, Adam, and Anthony, we know that Adam probably would have taken Dane, because what we learned in the Final 4 is that Adam went to Dane and told him about the final 2 he made with Anthony. So Adam was probably more loyal to Dane. If Adam wins that final 3 HOH, he takes Dane, probably. If Dane wins, he takes Anthony. So that's like a 50-50 shot. It's not the greatest for Anthony. If it's Dane and Kira has made a final 2 with Dane, which I do believe to be more genuine than their final 2 with Anthony, and Dane might take Anthony. I also feel like that's kind of a 50-50 between the chance that Kira can win and take Dane, or that Dane will win and take Kira. So that's not the greatest either, necessarily. If he had kept Mark, I do believe that Adam would have remained faithful to his final 2 with Anthony. I'm not sure, but I do think he would have. He was burned by Kira. He's definitely not taking Kira, and he never had that close of a relationship with Mark, who also has burned him in the past. I do believe Adam would have remained loyal to Anthony and taken Anthony to the end. Now, can Anthony beat Adam in a jury vote? That's another question to ask. But if he evicts Dane at final 5. He gets to the final 4 with Adam and Mark. We can probably say that Adam wins these competitions without Dane to compete against. Adam then evicts Kira, and at that point, I think Mark takes Anthony and Adam takes Anthony, and I actually do feel like that's probably a better spot for Anthony. So this might have been a mistake. But it's hard, and we won't know for sure until we find out what Dane does and what happens with the jury vote. So that's important to note there. But that's what it's looking like here at the final 4. So if Adam is evicted, it is important to note here that the final 3 will consist of Kira, Dane, and Anthony. It will likely come down to a part 3 with either Kira and Dane or Anthony and Dane. Dane has a leg up on this competition. I do believe that Kira will take Dane, but Anthony has been known to convince Kira of many a thing, so he could convince Kira to take him, at which point I think Anthony wins. If Dane wins, I don't know. We talked about this last night on the roundtable. I don't know whether he takes Anthony or not, and I don't know if Anthony beats him or not. So lots of things up in the air there with all of that. So when we look at the exit interviews that I did, Sam has ranked Anthony below Dane, but and also below Kira, I think. Or no, I think she rated, I believe it was Dane, or it was Adam, Dane, Anthony, Kira, or it might have been Kira, Anthony, I don't remember. But she really talked about wanting to reward the best player, and so she would likely be a vote for Anthony over Kira, but would be probably a vote for Dane over Anthony. Corey ranked Anthony number 1. Dane was way down at number 5. Kira was down at number 6, and Adam was number 3. So Corey probably a vote for Dane or for Anthony. Esty ranked Dane number 1, Anthony number 4, Adam number 5, and Kira number 6. So Esty could be a vote for Anthony over Adam or Kira, but would likely be a vote for Dane over Anthony. Damian ranked Dane number 2, Anthony number 3, Kira was last at 5, and Adam was number 1. So once again, Dane having a slight edge over Anthony with the Damian rankings. Mark ranked Adam number 1, Dane number 2, Anthony number 3, Kira number 4. So yet again, Dane ranked above Anthony. According to these exit interviews, Adam could beat Anthony. Dane could beat Anthony. Kira probably would not. But it's going to be a close vote either way, for sure. Very close vote. So that's what we're looking at heading into this final. So let's sum up Anthony's game here. Let's start to do the summary here. Michael wants to know, Anthony is all about good TV. Do you think Anthony has an epic speech about keeping Adam and humiliates Kira on and votes them out? He has been trying to humiliate someone all season. His words. I do not think that is likely. Is it possible? Maybe, but I don't think it's likely. Jessica wants to know, Anthony, that's the same question. So there you go. That's that question. So let's talk about Anthony's game. Anthony came into the game and he learned it very quickly. He was not as consistent or as adaptable as Dane's game was, but his highs were so much higher than Dane's were. Only a few times he was in a position where he could have gone home, which I think was a little bit more than Anthony. But like I said, he had much more control and influence throughout the game than anybody else throughout the season. if we're looking at Dane versus Anthony, Dane was a more consistent, a more well-rounded, and a more adaptable player, but Anthony had control over the season. What Anthony wanted, Anthony got. The shotgun approach meant that he failed in a lot of his different ideas, but he always found one to succeed. He controlled the eviction. He controlled the boot order for the most part. There were very few times where Anthony did not get his way. One of those times was with Corey, and one of those times was with, I guess, Laura. But for the most part, he got his way. Now, did he make the correct decisions with the boot order is something that we can talk about. Losing Kaylin, losing Eddie. These are people that could have theoretically been votes for Anthony if they had been in the jury, and he let them go early. He let the relationships deteriorate because he was focusing on people that he could manipulate better, which was great for his game to control the season, but not always focusing on the jury, and that, I think, comes from his lack of game knowledge. He never even, I think, finished a full season. He doesn't really understand how the jury works and what happens with the jury questioning. And so that has not been his primary concern. In the meantime, Dane, being the more well-rounded player, has focused on the jury. He's made sure to give people pity votes where he needs to. He's made sure to do jury management with key members of the jury like Sam. It seems clear to me that Dane has outplayed Anthony when it comes to jury management. However, Anthony has played such a strong and dominating game that he has puppets on the jury in Corey, in potentially Kira, if it comes down to Dane versus Anthony. And even Mark, who said he would vote for Dane over Anthony, we still feel like probably would have a vote cast for Anthony over Dane, but that depends. That's if Dane takes Anthony and cuts Kira. I think he'll probably find that to be a silly decision. But again, I've also said on the roundtable that I feel like Mark would be a vote for Dane if he feels like that's the way the rest of the votes are going as well. And he might just vote for Dane anyway. But the point being, Anthony does have some votes on that jury, probably. So that's how to look at that. Corey was the only time he didn't vote correctly. That Corey moment was his lowest point in the game. His lack of competition prowess helped him immensely. People saw him as weak, and they didn't think he was worth targeting. And he surrounded himself with other big targets. All around him, he had big targets. Adam, Dane, Corey, all of these people were big targets around him so that if he went on the block, he would hopefully stay. That was not the case with Dane, and he was in danger when it came to Dane. But other than that, he was very safe, largely because of his lack of competition prowess, which served him very well. Unfortunately, it was not faked. And so when it comes to the end game, he did not have the ability to win himself to the end, which is why he needed Dane. And that's all good. Now, see, like, the thing about Anthony's game is that all season long we worried about his end game. How does his end game work? And it turns out he did have a plan. Kira was a secret sleeper cell, and Adam, he was going to make sure he had the ammo to turn Adam against Dane. Now, it seems like he failed in turning Adam against Dane, but he did succeed with Kira. And so now the question becomes, I mean, he was able to get Adam out, theoretically, if that's what happened, and he has Dane. If he can beat Dane in a jury vote, then it justifies all of the decisions that Anthony has made. If Dane wins and takes Anthony, he stays loyal, and Anthony beats him, then I think we look back and we say, this was the best game in the season by far. I think that is the highest level of gameplay that anybody can achieve this season. However, if Anthony doesn't get taken by Dane, or if Anthony loses the jury vote to Dane, we do have to question some of the decisions that were made by Anthony late in the end game and say those were probably mistakes, and it was probably his lack of upfront knowledge about the game that cost him the win here, because he didn't understand the jury quite as well, or he had the wrong read on Dane, who was able to manipulate him. And in that case, I do think we probably would say Dane is the better player, though not quite as good as Anthony could be if Anthony won. So that would be my read on that situation. That would be my read on that situation. And it's all, of course, very, up to like how this happens, what the jury says, how close the vote is, and all of that. So lots of stuff up in the air here to talk about. But either way, they're both incredible players, and Anthony has played a completely dominating game. His dominating presence in the game helped him manipulate people and get his way, but it also did get him into a lot of disagreements with people throughout the season, and that may also be a reason that either people do vote for him because they felt close enough to argue with him, or that they might not feel as close to him as they want to, and might not want to vote for him. Stacked wants to know, will Anthony look more fly going out than he did coming in, or in his banker's outfit? I think Anthony will look incredibly fly, always fly. So there you go. That was Anthony's game. It's hard to give the final analysis on it because so much of it relies on things that haven't happened yet, right? Anthony was fantastic if Dane actually does take him to the end, because that means he was right. It means he was able to manipulate Dane into taking him. He was able to get that far. And then if he wins a jury vote, that means that was the correct decision to keep Dane over Adam, and to have Mark go out in that spot where maybe he could have beaten Mark but couldn't beat Dane. It really depends. And I think the fact that it depends tells us that that it's hard to blame him for making the wrong decision, because it was a close way either way. But it does matter when it comes to judging him against other great players of the season. I think regardless of the outcome of the season, Anthony should be and will be considered one of the best players to play Big Brother Canada of all time. And that's just the way things go. Has Dane shared any info with what happens in the finale to Anthony? Not too much. Dane honestly doesn't know a ton either. He knows more than Anthony because he's watched the show, but not like super fan feed watching level of knowledge there. Do I think Anthony knows he only has a short period of time for his speech at the final two? I'm sure he is going to be given a heads up by production about how much time he'll have, but he probably doesn't recognize how worthless the questioning period is, that they're not even going to be asking their own questions. They're going to be reading off of a card. They're going to have already made their decision, and that's not something that's good for Anthony. Something that I've talked about before is that I do believe that Anthony feels very confident, because Anthony's game plan is, as long as I get to the final two, I can win because I can out-talk the other person. He doesn't realize that that's not really how it works. He assumes that's how it works because that's how it's kind of supposed to work, but it does not actually work that way. And so that is going to be a big hindrance to his jury management. So, something to think about. I feel like I've been too negative about anything. I'm really trying to explain why I think, because like I said on the roundtable, I am leaning toward, I think Dane probably has, not probably, I think I'm leaning toward Dane taking the win here. And so I do feel like I'm trying to find the spots here where Anthony allowed that to happen. But if Anthony wins, then all of these decisions were correct, that he should have taken Dane, and he should have gotten Dane to take him to the final two, and then he wins over Dane. And if Dane loses, then we will point to Dane as being too loyal to Anthony, too easily manipulated by Anthony, and definitely just should have taken Kira to the end. That's obvious at that point. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. It really, really depends on what happens here at the end. They are both so good, and either one of them, I believe, will be the best winner of Big Brother Canada. So there you go. What will we point to if Kira wins? Just don't. We'll point to the off button. Do I think that if Corey had a vote the first week and kept Mackie, how do you think it would have affected Anthony. I actually think Anthony, again, I feel like it might have been a mistake for Anthony, although Mackie was pretty close to Dane, so maybe that wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world. But I don't think it would have mattered too much to Anthony either way. I think he could have used Mackie in much the same way he used Kira, honestly. So I don't think that matters. All right. That's what we have for you for Anthony. Truly a fantastic game. Has done a lot of things, really dictated the action throughout the season. Like I said, not as well-rounded as Dane, but much stronger than Dane when it comes to manipulation. There were various points in the season throughout the game where Dane relented to Anthony's will. Dane said, okay, with Mackie, Dane said, fine, we'll do what you want, Anthony. With Kiki, Anthony just straight up outplayed Dane and kept Corey to get rid of Kiki. With Chelsea, Anthony wanted Chelsea to go and not to do the backdoor for Sam. Anthony got Dane to relent and agreed to do what Anthony wanted. With Mark's HOH, Anthony got Mark to keep Corey even though the secret assassin happened. Anthony got his way even though the twist ruined it. With Corey's HOH, he got Sam to be backdoored, despite the fact that Sam didn't want, or that Corey didn't want to do that, and that Adam didn't want that to happen. But Anthony made it happen, and he made everyone okay with it. With Kira's HOH, so on and so forth. It's every step of the way, Anthony has always been able to get his way and get to the end in the way that he wanted to. And so, again, now it all comes down to, has he made the right decisions along the way? Very much like how we looked at Tyler's game, where he dictated a lot of the action throughout that season, but did he make the correct decisions? Did he take the right people to the end? Can he beat them? Or has he made similar mistakes? We're going to have to find out on finale night. So tomorrow morning, I will be live, and we will talk about Kira's game across Big Brother Canada 7. So look out for that. I will try to be a little bit early for that one. So just look out on my Twitter at ArmstrongTaryn for that. I will be heading to Toronto tomorrow. So my flight is tomorrow. That's why I'm going to be a little bit early, if possible. So I'll be going over Kira's game, and then Thursday night, I will be live from Toronto after the airing of the episode to recap the finale. And then Friday, I will be speaking with the final three in person and ask them some questions. It'll be fun. We'll do it. All right. That's what I have for you. Thank you so much for joining me today. You can find me on Twitter at ArmstrongTaryn if you're looking out for the when we're going to go live with the Kira thing tomorrow. And there you go. Thanks once again for joining me. I hope you enjoyed Anthony's game, and I'll see you next time.